obligations are being met, but the definition needs to be addressed at this stage so that they're in place ready for the transition stage later on. I'm getting a question in, which I think I'll try and answer now. The question that I'm being asked is, if we haven't completed our requirements, how can we make the contract measurable and testable? It's a very good question. What I'm advocating is that the contract should define the quality gates for both the customer and the supplier. Your supplier should have entry criteria for each gate, and you should have exit criteria for the gate at the other end of that process. The supplier shouldn't accept requirements from you that are unclear, that contain assumptions, that are ambiguous or incomplete. Above all, though, they shouldn't accept things that haven't been signed off by both parties. What this allows is that the contract defines the contractual obligations without specifying specific detail. So, I guess the trick, in answer to the question, is to ensure that, having met the entry criteria, the supplier then demonstrates coverage of and traceability back to those requirements, and demonstrates, if you like, that they've delivered against the agreed plan, so that you can then tick off the exit criteria at the end of that process. I think I can use the old adage here, which is to fail to prepare is to prepare to fail. It's all about getting this thing right up front. It's vital that everyone on the extended team, client, customer, whatever you want to call them, and outsource partners, understand clear roles and responsibilities. You need to establish up front who's going to test what the success criteria are, and build those criteria, metrics and measurements into the contract and govern them closely. So, as I've just said, to fail to prepare is to prepare to fail, but you need to begin this journey with the end in mind. I'd like to use this simple lifecycle diagram to demonstrate the key types of testing at each stage of the outsourcing lifecycle, from the original idea to benefits realization. The diagram demonstrates the importance of static testing at the ideas, requirements and design stages. So if I build that up, the idea should be reviewed. It should have an internal static test, and at quality gate 1 you should say, is this a good idea? Should we be going ahead with it? Likewise, as you define your detailed requirements, you should be static reviewing them. The British Computer Society suggests that for a 3% investment of your project budget, you can find 70% of defects before a line of code is written or a product is configured, whether that's a shrink-wrap product or a product you're buying from an independent software vendor. So you should be asking, have I written the right set of requirements, and have I made them clear, unambiguous, assumption-free and complete? Likewise, when we start asking our supplier to specify and design and then subsequently build the functional requirements against our business requirements, we need to static test those. And what I'm saying here is that the bit at the bottom that I've just put a circle around is the traditional, if you like, the simplified outsource responsibility for our outsourced supplier. And when they've passed through their specification and design gate at quality gate 3, they need to provide you evidence that they static tested that and signed it off before they begin their build and unit test. And at quality gate 4, what they should be doing is providing evidence that they've done unit testing and system testing, and that the coverage they've achieved and the known defects that remain are clearly articulated and transparent to you as the customer or client. In other words, you would expect that outsource provider to verify that they've built the system right. Now, as we progress to the second half of the diagram, it describes the dynamic testing, test execution, which is running the tests, the scripts, the scenarios that we have planned, analysed and designed during the first 3 phases of the life cycle. So the responsibility for things like integration, acceptance testing, whether that's business acceptance, user acceptance, operational acceptance, or non-functional acceptance, things like performance and security, lies with the business, and should validate that the outsourcer has built the right system and that it integrates with existing business processes, the existing business operation, and other systems as expected. Then, and only then, will it be possible to realise the benefits after implementation and measure the overall success of the change at quality gate 6. So for me, this comes back to the key point that governance is key. You need to define and govern these quality gates with your outsourced partner well. Going back to roles and responsibilities, we've talked at roles and responsibilities at a high level. I think it's important to define what those roles and responsibilities need to be in terms of managing the contract and managing quality and testing throughout the process. So you need to define who'll do contract management and how the contract will be governed, and we defined that as an overall governance team in an earlier slide in phase 1. We also need to include governance of the supplier relationship and of the relationship from the supplier to the customer. So there should be a supplier relationship managed by the customer and a customer relationship managed by the supplier. It's absolutely imperative that you define assurance and testing for each lifecycle stage and sign-off of each lifecycle stage, as we've seen in the previous diagram. However, change is inevitable. How it will be managed, governed and tested needs to be defined at this stage. Who owns and maintains development and test environment? Who provides data for testing? Who tests system security and system support, system performance? All need to be defined. And how will progress of testing be reported? How will risks and issues be managed? And one that I missed out of the last slide but is very important is how will business continuity and disaster recovery be tested and proven that it works? So this concept of we thought you were doing it isn't an option. We can't possibly allow things to fall down the gaps between our clients, our customers, and our outsource contract with our outsourced partner. I think what I'm alluding to is we need to define who is going to test this stuff. Who tests what? It flows naturally from the roles and responsibilities defined in the previous